The Zephyrian Council had seen civilizations rise and fall across the galaxy for over 10 millennia. They had witnessed the brutal efficiency of the Krex Empire, the calculated cruelty of the Vorten Collective, and the methodical destruction wrought by the Silicon hegemony. War to them was a science, predictable patterns of aggression, resource acquisition, and territorial expansion that followed the same cosmic rhythms as stellar formations. Ambassador Kethvar reviewed the tactical data on his holographic display, his 6 eyes scanning the reports with practiced detachment. The newest species to emerge from the outer rim, these humans, had been catalogued and assessed. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards, their military doctrine unsophisticated, their numbers insignificant. The Council had faced similar upstart species countless times before. Initial projections suggest complete subjugation within 2.3 standard cycles, reported war strategist Vexthul, her mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Their emotional volatility will work against them. Fear will break their resolve quickly. Kethvar nodded approvingly. The Zephyrians had refined warfare to an art form over centuries. They understood the psychology of conquest, how to break spirits, when to offer mercy, how to turn populations against their own governments. It was all mathematics and behavioral science. The first human colony to fall was New Geneva. The Zephyrian fleet arrived with overwhelming force, as was protocol. They expected the usual sequence: shock, desperate resistance, negotiation, surrender. Instead, they received a single transmission from the planetary governor, a middle-aged human female named Sarah Chen. "You want our world?" Her voice crackled through space, steady despite the massive alien fleet hanging over her planet. "Come and take it." What followed defied every model in the Zephyrian war archives. The humans didn't break. When their military installations were destroyed, civilians picked up weapons. When their cities were bombed, survivors emerged from the rubble with makeshift explosives. Children who should have been cowering in shelters were running supply lines to resistance fighters. The elderly, whom any rational species would evacuate, were jury-rigging ancient equipment into improvised weapon systems. But it wasn't just their refusal to surrender that unsettled the Zephyrian commanders. It was the look in their eyes. Every previous species they'd conquered had shown fear, desperation, or resignation. Humans showed something else entirely, a cold, burning fury that seemed to grow stronger with each casualty they suffered. Captain Zolthek reported the anomaly to the War Council. Their tactical responses are unprecedented. They're using suicide attacks not as last resorts, but as opening strategies. They're destroying their own infrastructure to deny us resources. Some settlements have triggered nuclear devices rather than allow capture. The War Council dismissed these reports as exaggerations. Every species fought desperately when cornered. But as more worlds fell, a disturbing pattern emerged. Human resistance wasn't weakening, it was spreading. When the Zephyrians conquered the agricultural world of Kepler 442b, they expected to secure food supplies for their advancing fleet. Instead, they found that the human colonists had poisoned their entire harvest and salted their fields. The message they left was simple: starve. On the industrial world of Proxima Station, human workers had sabotaged their own factories so thoroughly that it would take decades to rebuild. Worse, they had done it systematically, ensuring maximum damage with precise knowledge of structural weaknesses. These weren't desperate acts of a cornered animal. They were calculated decisions made by a species that valued defiance over survival. The turning point came at the Battle of Terranova, humanity's most heavily defended system. The Zephyrian fleet arrived expecting another prolonged siege. Instead, they found the humans waiting for them in open space. Admiral Marcus Steele commanded the human fleet from the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable. His forces were outnumbered 5-1, outgunned, and operating with technology centuries behind their enemies. By every military doctrine in the galaxy, he should have been negotiating surrender terms. Instead, he gave an order that would be remembered across the galaxy for millennia. All ships, ramming speed, make them earn every meter. The human fleet didn't retreat, didn't try to outmaneuver, didn't attempt to minimize casualties. They charged directly into the Zephyrian formation, like a spear thrust into the heart of the enemy. Ships too damaged to fight effectively became kinetic weapons, their crews riding them to destruction with grim satisfaction. The Indomitable was the last human ship in the battle. Crippled and burning, it limped toward the Zephyrian flagship. With its remaining crew, Admiral Steele's final transmission was picked up by every ship in the system. Tell your council this: humanity doesn't surrender. We don't negotiate. We don't forgive. Come for our worlds, and we'll make you pay for every star system with blood and fire. We'll follow you back to your homeworlds if we have to. This isn't war to us. This is family. The Indomitable detonated against the Zephyrian flagship in a ball of nuclear fire that could be seen from 3 star systems away. News of Terranova reached the Galactic Council within days. For the first time in their recorded history, a primitive species had not only inflicted massive casualties on a superior force, but had done so with what could only be described as enthusiasm. The human admiral hadn't died in despair. He had died laughing. Ambassador Kethavar stared at the casualty reports, his multiple eyes struggling to process the numbers. The Zephyrians had won the battle, but at a cost that defied all strategic logic. More troubling were the intercepted human communications from across their territory. Rather than being demoralized by the loss, humanity seemed energized. One transmission, broadcast on open channels from Earth itself, chilled him to, "His exoskeleton, they killed Marcus Steele. They killed the crews of Terranova. They think this makes us afraid." The voice belonged to President Elena Vasquez, but she might as well have been speaking for every human in the galaxy. They're about to learn the difference between fear and fury. War strategist Vex Thul's mandibles trembled as she reviewed the intelligence reports. "Sir, our projections were incorrect. Human resistance isn't following any known pattern. They're treating military defeat as recruitment opportunities." The truth was beginning to dawn on the Zephyrian command. They hadn't been fighting a war. They had been feeding a fire. Every human death wasn't breaking resistance. It was creating martyrs. Every destroyed world wasn't eliminating a threat. It was proving to humanity that their enemies had to be utterly destroyed. The galaxy had seen many types of warriors. It had witnessed species that fought for territory, for resources, for ideology, for survival. But it had never faced a species that fought for rage itself, that treated conflict not as a means to an end, but as a sacred duty to their fallen. The Zephyrian Council was about to learn what the rest of the galaxy would soon discover. When humans went to war, they didn't just fight to win. They fought to make their enemies regret ever being born.